I'm in a game. I'm in a game. Hello, I'm in the video with my daddy.
What's going on, everybody? So this week we're going to have jhart Model Works on, and we're going to get to meet him a little bit, and then maybe go on what we've been working on, and then kind of finish up the day. And he's doing some kind of house renovation, so if there's background noise, we're just going to work with it, okay? So how's it going, man?
Good. How's it going, Josh?
Pretty good. So my first question is how long have you been in the hobby?
I did a little bit as a teenager, but I don't really consider that, in the hobby. Probably about 6 years, I think. About 6 years ago, I started doing it. So.
No, I mean that's cool. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, right?
Right.
I mean, I've been back into it for he's 9 now, so I was about 8 years back into it. So I understand.
Yeah. That was kind of a long story, but every year, my wife will ask me, "What do you want for Christmas? Or what do you want for your birthday?" And every year I'm like, "I don't know." And she's like, "I'm going to murder you." So I started keeping a list. So, all the things that you want throughout the year, but you can't afford it. It's not the right time. There's other more important things I just put on my list. And so I give her a list every year. And one year, Christmas was coming up. I knew she was going to be asking for my list soon. And I'm looking at this list, and everything on the list is expensive. It's like electronics, video cards, a NAS array, hard drives. It's all expensive. There's no way she can afford this for Christmas. So I got sent to Hobby Lobby for something, probably thread for her cross stitching, and I walked past the model building section. And I was like, well, I'll just put a couple of these models on my list. It'll be, a cheap, inexpensive hobby. So much. And so, she got me a couple of kits, and I got back into doing models about 6 years ago.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's
She's
awesome.
like, "I'm cutting you off of Amazon."
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Let's not talk about Amazon. At least it's not as bad as eBay, right?
Oh Lord. The thing is that, the difference is you buy kits on eBay, or you buy parts, or, some aftermarket stuff on eBay. Amazon's where you go to get all the replenishable supplies that you're constantly having to refill. And that $10 here, $5 there, $13 there builds up until all of a sudden, the person who does the finances is like, "Stop spending money."
I see. Like I said, I understand. I understand. So, what's your favorite thing to build?
For the most part, cars. I do a lot of cars. I've done a little bit of the Bandai Star Wars stuff. I've done some of the Mobius, the Battlestar Galactica stuff. But for the most part, I do cars.
Cars. That's cool. So, what's your favorite car that you've built so far?
My favorite build is the Ferrari 250 California Spider.
Oh, that's a nice car.
That is my favorite car, like period. And it was one of those where every time I saw it show up on eBay, it was $100 or more. And again, one year for Christmas, Carol was like, "What do you want for Christmas?" And it popped up for like $45. And I'm like, that's what I want for Christmas. That right there, get that.
No, that's awesome.
So
Because I mean, that's how I save money in the hobby, is doing it through Black Friday. So I
Yeah.
understand.
So every now and then when deals pop up, you're like, okay, I need to get this now because I know it's going to be really expensive later.
Yeah. Or won't be there. That's my favorite. You know, you see something and it'll be like, I gotta wait till payday, and then you go back on payday and it's like gone, and you're like, nah!
And especially now with like ever since the pandemic, it's like Japan thinks that every box of plastic is worth $300.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
I was looking for the Italeri. Italeri did a Ferrari 250 SWB with the hardtop, and on the rare chance that I see it, they want $200 or $300 for it, and I'm like, no, not doing it.
No, I mean that's really, really cool. So you're mostly a car guy. So where do you usually go to get some of your aftermarket parts?
I typically go. There's a bunch of places. I go to a bunch of places, but Ted's Modeling Marketplace is where I go to get a lot of stuff, especially the ProTech stuff. I love the ProTech aftermarket stuff. But Charlie from ProTech only takes like checks and money orders, and I haven't written a check in forever. You know, I'm sure we have some somewhere, but you can go to like Ted's and you can buy from Ted's and get all the ProTech stuff. But I've been using a lot of Mr. Model stuff as well lately, and some stuff from Off the Sprue. On the 80th anniversary Pearl Harbor group build, I used some air cleaners from them that were really, really awesome. So there's a lot of places I like to go.
Well, that's cool. You know, and there's a lot of places that are starting to pop up back again since we're kind of getting out of the COVID, right?
Yep.
Which is really cool. So we're going to talk about tools. What are some of the tools that you like to use while doing this hobby?
Oh, I have so many tools. I am what Will Pattison would refer to as a tool whore. I have tons of tools. So I love the Excel hobby knives because the adjuster is on the back, so when you're working with them, they don't loosen up.
Oh, that's nice.
So they're really comfortable, and they don't. I have a set of these cheapy ones from Amazon, and anytime you're trying to work with them, because the collet's right here, they're always coming loose. Some of the more unusual tools that I like to work with, I have a ball of blue tack that is just multi-purpose. I'll pull a piece off and use it for masking. I'll roll it up into a tiny little point and use it to hold tiny bits of photo etch or, headlight lenses. You want to pick up those tiny little parts and place them. There's nothing like a pointy ball of blue tack.
So I want you to talk about the masking part of that for a second. How are you masking that stuff off with blue tack?
So, for instance, I did in my most recent video, I did the dash on the Alpine A150, and it's a really weird shape because it's round and it kind of arcs. It does these like round under pieces. So masking that with tape is like near impossible. But you take the blue tack and you smash it really thin, and then you smush it down, and then you take like a Q-tip from Tamiya, these tiny ones, and you poke it into all the little corners so you get a good seal. And then when you get done spraying, you just take your big blob of blue tack and you just smash it onto the part, and you do it a couple of times, and all that blue tack comes right off.
Oh, that's a cool tip. I actually never thought of. I've used silly putty, so I guess that's kind of the same.
That's kind of the same thing, yeah.
Kind of the same thing, huh?
Another one of my favorite tools is mechanical pencils. I use them as paintbrushes.
Wait, what?
Yeah. I have a 0.3 millimeter mechanical drafting pencil.
Okay.
So you run some lead out, you put a little piece of tape, or you put some paint down on a cup or something. You dip the lead from the pencil. Make sure you don't get it up on the pencil itself, or it'll clog up the tip. But you dip just the lead in, and you got those little tiny little buttons on your dashboard or something, or rivet detail you want to hit. You just tap the pencil against that rivet detail or the button, and you keep loading paint back onto the pencil lead, and you just get these tiny little 0.3 millimeter dots. And I've got a 0.5 set as well.
So is that one of those that when you sharpen it, you can either do the square end or the point, right?
No, it's just a regular 0.3 millimeter drafting pencil.
Oh, okay.
You just run the pencil lead out, and you're using the pencil lead out. You're using the pencil lead as your brush.
No, I just wanted to make sure I understood that, right? Because there's some of those pencils that are just lead.
There may be some square leads, but I've never run into them. So, I mean, if you were using a square lead, you'd kind of do the same thing. You just get little squares instead of little dots.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
But like anywhere you've got like bolt detail, like on an engine or something on the valve covers, you can just pick off those tiny little bolts, and you don't get paint everywhere. So using a tiny paintbrush, I would still get paint like all over the valve covers and stuff. But with this, you just kind of tap it, and you get a tiny little dot.
No, that's awesome. Everybody has a unique thing that they do, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on about tools. I've got a jig that's just for cutting. Like,
oh no, you have to show that now. No. You have to show it. That's just teasing.
All right.
You can't.
So, let's gotta put the handle back on it because it comes apart for storage. So, you take this little arm and you lift it up. You measure out your first piece. So I use this a lot when I'm making Optima batteries, because you need like the 6 round pieces in the center. So you measure it out, you put your plastic in there, and you adjust the end with this little nut, and you get that right to where you want it, so that your mark is in this little cut line.
Okay.
So then you hold it down with the little lever, put your thumb on there to hold it stable, you cut. When you come all the way through, you dump it out, and you just load the plastic right back in, and it's already set to cut the exact same length. So if you need 10 pieces of tubing the exact same length, you will come out with 10 pieces of tubing the exact same length.
No, nice. And so what is that tool originally for, right? Or is that a modeling tool?
I think it's for cutting small, like plastic. It's like it's listed on eBay as a cutting jig.
Oh, okay.
So it's meant for cutting like plastic and metal tubing and stuff.
Oh, okay. I follow you. Okay. No, that's cool looking.
But I mean, yeah, that's kind of one of my weirder tools. It's one of those, it's a very niche tool for very specific purposes. But when you're cutting aluminum tubing for tailpipes, and you don't want tailpipes that are like 2 different lengths, it's really nice to have.
So we're gonna go into paint now, right?
Okay, we can do that for a couple of hours.
For a couple hours. Wow. All right.
You can if you ever speak to Chris from CD Scale Models, Chris will tell you that I can go on and on and on about paint.
Awesome. So what is your favorite brand of paint that you use?
That's a tough one. I don't really have a favorite brand.
So what are the paints that you have? Let's
I
just start there.
I use a lot of zero paints. I like I like zero paints for the just breadth of color that they have. The color variety they have is amazing. You can go and find, I'm looking for a Lamborghini specific paint, and they've got it, but they're really hot. So if you're not really careful with how you spray it, you're going to craze the plastic, and then you've got to strip it, and then you've got to sand the body again and, start all over. So you have to spray ridiculously light coats and build the color up you want in like 7 or 8 super thin, like just mist coats. Or you run the risk of, if you even remotely get it on wet, you're in trouble. I love Gravity Colors because Gravity Colors they're not as hot, they're not as harsh as Zero, and they've got a lot of good color selection. Only buy from Spain though, because the USA guy has a reputation of not shipping. But Spain, I order from Spain, and I usually get stuff within the week. They're not as hot, but they don't have the selection that Zero has. I'm starting to really like splash paints. I'm using a lot of Splashes paints, which again are an automotive grade lacquer paint. I spray mostly lacquers because they're very fast. By the time I've got the color sprayed on all the parts and I've cleaned the airbrush out, the parts are usually touchable. And I can move on to my next color. If I can give them 15 minutes and mask, and I can be spraying my next color on the same parts.
So with most of those paints, what are you thinning them with? Or are they pretty much thin enough to run through the airbrush?
Most of them come pre-thinned. Like Zero, Gravity, those kind of colors all come pre-thinned. When I'm doing Tamiya acrylics, I thin those with Mr. Leveling Thinner, which is absolute unicorn tears. That stuff will thin anything with the exception of like Vallejo. When I started using MLT on Tamiya acrylics, they started spraying like lacquers. I mean, they were just absolute perfectly smooth, absolutely amazing finishes, dried in a heartbeat. It was amazing. I love Tamiya's LP line. I used to order it out of Canada before it was available in the US. I love the super for metallics. I like Alclads. I really love Alclads, and I'm starting to like the Mr. Hobby Super Metallic line, but a lot of their silvers are almost the exact same color. So you really only need like a couple of them. And the gold, like the gold and the super gold 2 and the super rich gold are both very different colors, and they're both great colors to have. And then the titanium and the steel and the super silver. And that's pretty much, out of all those colors that they've got, that's pretty much all you need. The rest of them look like one of the other colors.
Oh, okay. That's cool. No, that's really awesome.
And then I've got a handful of water-based acrylics that I use for doing like interior detail. Tamiya acrylics. I've got Splash. I've got a couple of House of Colors I've started playing with, which I kind of like. But yeah, I've got a bunch of different paints that I use.
So what are you using to put those paints on with? Airbrush, right?
I do, yeah, absolutely. They're airbrush paints. I airbrush pretty much everything. I very rarely use a brush. If I'm doing like interior detail, I'm using like a mechanical pencil and Vallejo acrylics or Tamiya acrylics. Otherwise, it's airbrushed. So I've got a UMP Apex, which is really a Badger Thayer and Chandler Omni 4000.
Yeah.
And that's just a workhorse brush. You can beat the crap out of it. You can spray anything through it. It's just an absolute workhorse of a brush. And that's a 0.3 millimeter needle nozzle. And then for primer, I am clear coats. For primer and 2K clear, I'm using a Badger Patriot, a 105 Patriot with the 0.5, though I switched it down to the 0.3, and I like the 0.3 in that brush better.
Oh, now, why is that?
The 0.5 empties a lot of paint really quick. It's got a real big spray pattern. And for the body, that's fine. If you're spraying a car body or you're spraying, primer on an airplane or something, you want a big spray pattern to cover a lot of area, When you're dealing with small parts like, headlight trim that you're rechroming or something, and you've got a part that's this big and you've got a spray pattern this big, you're losing a lot of paint to overspray.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's why I don't like rattle cans. I
Yeah.
started out using rattle cans, and I got some great finishes. You can get a great finish with like Tamiya rattle cans, but you're fire hosing paint onto the part. So when you're painting small parts like engine parts and things, and you're just flooding them with paint, you lose a lot of detail, and you lose a lot of paint. You're just throwing money out the window. So when I pull the 0.5 out and put the 0.3 in, so I still use the 0.5 for doing bodies, like clear coating bodies and primering bodies, and then I'll switch it down to the 0.3 for doing all the rest of the smaller parts. And it's more conservative on paint.
Yeah, because some of those paints are pretty spendy, right?
Yeah, some of them are like $10, $12, $15 a bottle.
Yeah, I was going to
Plus
say.
shipping, because I have to have everything shipped. Because no one around me carries anything but little square testers bottles of enamel that never dry.
Isn't that the truth with those, though?
You pick up and that's what when I started back in the hobby, the first thing I did was I went to Hobby Lobby and I bought 1,000 little jars of little enamel paints, and you paint a part and you'd wait 2 days and you pick up the part to put it on and you press the part in place, and when you pull your thumb off, there's a thumbprint in the paint because the paint was still soft underneath.
Oh.
And just like, that's why I love lacquer paint. Lacquer paint is dry in minutes.
No, that's really cool, dude.
But it smells. It really does smell. I understand. That's why my airbrushes are in the garage.
Oh yeah. I get that's the issue I have. Why I don't do anything but acrylic, water-based acrylic. Hardened Steenbeck Infinity CR +3 and 1. Oh, okay, that's cool.
That is an amazing and amazingly expensive airbrush.
Yes, it is.
Harder and Steenbecks, in my opinion, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking your brush, and I know, Terry, that you do like other stuff than just paint models. So you actually do like art. And for that, it's an amazing brush. But in my opinion, using a $400 airbrush on models is like killing a house fly with a sledgehammer. It's way more than most modelers are going to need.
Yeah, and it's super expensive. Like that's the one reason I went with the Kotar instead of that.
You get these guys who go out, and they're new guys, and they get on the internet and they're like, hey, what's a good airbrush to use? And they get people telling them go get these $400 or $500, $300 airbrushes, and then they're like, this hobby's just too expensive, and it can scare people off. Or they spend $300 on an airbrush, and then 2 builds in decide this really isn't for me.
No, that's cool. No, I started with the Harbor Freight one.
I started out with the Master. which is pretty much the exact same. All of those little round compressor ones are AS196 compressors from a company in China. They just paint them different colors and label them for the resellers. So they're all the same compressor. And they pretty much all ship with the same, brushes, in my opinion, just the cheap little Chinese brushes. But those master brushes, I did great with them for a couple of years before I stepped up. I decided, again, it was one of those situations. I had a little money, and it was like, I really want a better airbrush. And so I looked around, and Badger looked like a good fit. They're easy to clean. They're easy to take apart when you need to. They had a lot of good reviews from other people. And, I've just loved the Badgers ever since. But I tell guys all the time who are like, hey, I'm just wanting to start out. I'm wanting to see if I like it. I'm like, get you one of these $100 airbrush kits, $150 airbrush kits off Amazon that have the master airbrush and the little AS196 compressor. You won't spend a fortune. You'll decide if you really like it and just go from there. I cannot use a Pash H to save my life.
Really?
I have one. When I first started, my mother-in-law was cleaning out her garage, and I got my wife's father's Pash H, and I know they are fantastic brushes. Like ILM uses Pash H brushes. They're like, everybody says they're great workhorse brushes, but I always end up with this really, really rough surface when I spray with it. I've never been able to figure out how to not get that really rough finish with it.
So are you talking about with the lacquers or the acrylic?
With literally anything I have sprayed through a Pash H, I end up with a rough finish.
Because I usually,
and I know it's me. It's not.
Yeah.
It's got to be me. It's something I'm doing. The gravity feed airbrushes, you just dump it in and it goes out the hole and it works. It's simple, so I can do it. There's something that needs to be adjusted that I just don't understand what I need to adjust or why or how with that airbrush, that I can't do it.
So my next question is, what's the air pressure you're using with the Pash H?
Depends on what I'm spraying. Typically, with the Pash H, I typically spray at 15 for just about everything.
Okay, so that's your problem.
Okay, that's my problem?
Because you need to go up. Because I can't get it to work great unless I'm at least 30.
Really?
Yeah. Because it's not gravity, it's siphon feed.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll have to try that then. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong, because I've sprayed everything at like 15. Like 15 to 20 is like my sweet spot for a gravity feed, unless I'm using Alclads. If I'm using Alclads, it drops down to like 8. Alclad paints are like water thin.
Yeah, that makes sense. I will
have to give that brush another go and try it with, and I'll have a third really nice brush maybe.
Because I buy the filler primer, right? I have a can for the airbrush, so I can use my airbrush, and that's what I use the Pash H for.
Nice.
That and clear coats. Yeah, see, 20.
Take Mr. Surfacer and Mr. Leveling Thinner, and I mix it about 60% thinner to 40% primer, and I put it in these little condiment bottles that I get off Amazon. And so I have pre-thinned thinner just ready to go. I've got the Mr. Surfacer 1500 in black, white, and gray in bottles. I can just shake them up, pour it in the airbrush, and it's set.
Yeah, no.
So I do the same thing with like my Tamiya paints, my Tamiya LPs, because Tamiya only sells like the 10 millimeter bottle, these tiny little 10 mil bottles that I clean out and use for like bleach for stripping chrome. But I'll pour them into these Boston bottles, like 4-ounce Boston bottles. and
Oh, okay.
I'll add I'll take, I got these little plastic funnels, and I'll pour in my Tamiya LP paint, and then I'll fill this back up with Mr. Leveling Thinner or Tamiya Thinner with Retarder. I'll shake it up real good, make sure I get all the paint out of the bottle, pour it in there too, and so then my Tamiya paints are pre-thinned and ready to spray. And so people ask me, where do you get those big bottles of Tamiya LP, or where do you get those big bottles of, Mr. Hobby? That's where I did a whole video on it, because I've been asked like 6 or 7 times now, where do you get those big bottles? And you don't get the big bottles, you make the big bottles, but it's pre-thinned. So I'm not sitting there with, pipettes mixing paint and thinner. And when I'm ready to paint, I just shake it up and paint.
No, yeah, no, that's yeah. I try to do that same thing to where it's all set up, so I just have to go.
Yeah, because sometimes you're getting 10 minutes between doing things to actually throw down some paint.
Yeah.
There's times when I know when I'm sitting at home, and I know that I've got something I've got to do here real quick, but I got the parts already prepped. Like right now, I have all the parts for the next video prepped and ready to spray.
Mm-hmm.
I may get 15 minutes later, grab those parts, run out, pour out my primer, and prime my parts real fast, and have them drying while I'm doing something else. And I'm not spending the time mixing primer.
Yeah. I try to do that same thing, especially with the Createch stuff, the Wicked line out of Hobby Lobby.
I have not tried that. I've watched Brian from Got Fuels Model Car Garage uses their paints.
He had a good tutorial. I do a lot of the stuff that he does, so I agree with most
some fantastic stuff. So I want to try those paints sometime. I'm just trying to figure out what build I'm going to try those on.
But they're acrylic, right? They're automotive acrylic paints.
I think so.
No, yeah, and then you just get they changed up a bunch of the thinners or the reducers. So I have the old stuff. So it's a little different for me right now, but
yeah,
it's still basically the same concept. You don't need much of it. It's such a cool paint line.
And looking at, some of the stuff that he builds, it was like, holy cow, that's some really cool stuff. So yeah, I want to give that a try sometime.
Yeah. No, Brian's gonna be on kind of, I think, the middle of April. So
oh, cool.
We're gonna have a nice little conversation about Createx, I'm sure.
Nice. I'll have to catch that one.
So we talked about airbrushes, paint. So what's up? What's some of the other tools and stuff that you use that we haven't covered?
Other tools and stuff. I love my Display Circle Cutter. No one else does, but I love my Display Circle Cutter.
Okay.
I did a review on it for one of the very few tool reviews that I did. I did a review on it. That video has like 18 dislikes. The next closest video has like 3. And I get it. It's an expensive tool. It's $60 for a tool that just makes circles, but it makes absolutely perfect circles every time. I just got to know how big they need to be. I've actually taken the pulley set before. You'll get the pulley part for an engine, and it'll have like 5 different pulleys. Laid a piece of tape across, put a dot in the center of each one of those pulleys, laid that tape down on my paper, and cut the pulleys out, and had a single mask that slid over all the pulleys.
Oh, nice.
Sprayed everything in like Mr. Surfacer black, laid the mask down, sprayed some silver over it, and had my pulleys painted. I use it for 2-tone wheels. I use it for interior stuff. All sorts of stuff with engine stuff. I love the circle tool. I think they've got a $30 one, but you can't use the locator there's a locating tool as well from Display. So it's got like a little glass lens that slots into this little L-shaped bracket. And you put the center dot in the lens on the center for where you want your circle to be. And then take that glass lens off and keep that L-shaped aluminum bracket in place and set the circle cutter in it. And it's perfectly centered, because that's the hardest part of that tool, is knowing where the center of the circle is going to be, because it's not necessarily the center of the tool. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, it and those are very specific on how they want to be used too.
Yeah, but once you set it down in the right place, you literally just spin it a couple of times and pull it off, and you'll have an absolutely perfectly circular mask. I had the Olfa cutter one that had like the little metal pin and then the blade on the other end, and it was kind of like the old school compass. And you're supposed to, I don't know how you're supposed to do it, but I obviously wasn't doing it right, because the pinpoint always pops out of the center. And I end up with like these like messed up oblong circles, and just the circle cutter was absolutely perfect. I use a lot of ribbon, seatbelts, 1/16 inch ribbon, get it off of eBay. You might find it in the craft store, but I just have not found tiny ribbon like this. But 1/16 inch makes perfect seatbelts for 124 scale cars. 100 yards will last the life of your hobby. What other kind of cool tools do I use? Chisels. I've got a chisel set for it's like a small stone chisel set, but I use it to scrape off the lettering. For like, you get like the underside of the roof will have like Tamiya and all the the like model number and all that in the raised lettering. And you just take the chisel and you scrape that lettering off, and then you go back in and you can sand it smooth. So those were kind of a fun tool. I just recently got a photo etch bender. Oh, here's a cool thing that I got, Matt from Model Car Videos. This is a jig for holding tires. So it's just a screw and a bolt, and these are wooden handles, like little mushroom-shaped handles from Hobby Lobby's wood section for like drawers. So you take the little nut off, you slot your tire in here, and then you put the nut back on, and it holds your tire perfectly. And then you can chuck this into a cordless drill, and then take a sander to the side while it's spinning and sand your tires down to get rid of the seam, the molding seam, and to give your tires that roughed up, driven on look.
Oh yeah, that's
literally
awesome.
A couple of bucks for like $5 or $6 for the door handles, a couple of bucks worth of, maybe $5 worth of nuts and bolts, and you end up with enough of these to make like 3 jigs, because you get 6 of the little doorknobs in the package.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome.
So yeah, that made it a whole lot faster for sanding down tires.
So what's your next build, or what are you currently working on?
Right now, I'm about to start on the final assembly for Tamiya's Alpine Renault A110. And
it's a car, right? That is a car, right?
Yeah, it's a car. It's this weird, quirky little French car.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I know what you're doing. That's what, 70s, right?
Yeah, it's like a 71, I think. It's supposed to be a 71.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because they give you door handles, which is, for 1 year, they had door handles, but they mold the body with these little notches back here at the back of the door. That's the handle setup for a totally different setup that didn't have a handle on it. It just had the door lock. and your handle was on the inside of the door. It was kind of a weird body. So I'm working on that right now. I'm about to finish that up. Probably in a week or two, I'll have that finished up. And I think I'm actually going to take a break. I keep saying I'm going to build the Chevy Nova because I've got the Revell Chevy Nova and I've got the C1 trans kit for it. And I keep saying I'm going to build it. I'm going to build it. I'm kind of scared of building it because I've never done a resin trans kit. So I haven't, it's going to be a learning experience. But what's going on is I've got a buddy build with Sean from the Scale Model Car Guy channel. It's going to start in May. And I don't know that I can finish the Nova before that starts. And I'm the kind of guy that I need to start a build and finish it before I start anything else.
Oh, there you go.
If I don't, because I know my ADD and I know the way my ADD works, I will have 20 cars started that will have the bodies painted and the engines built, and that will be all that's done to them. Because I enjoy doing the bodies, I enjoy doing the engines. By the time I get to the interior, I'm already planning out for the next build, and I'm like in kind of checkout mode.
So see this is idea, right? Then you just pass that on to a kid, right? Right?
Oh, all mine are grown. My daughter builds every now and then. Every now and then she'll build with me, but my son wanted nothing to do with it, and he's now out of the house. He's off in like an hour south of Dallas now. Palmer. Thank you, dear. Yeah, he's in Palmer now, so.
That's cool. So you're out of the Texas area, huh? So how's the hobby down there?
I know that there are builders down here. I know that there are clubs down here. I'm supposedly technically part of one of them. I've never been to a meeting, though. And every now and then there's shows. There's like a couple of shows down here, but I never know when they are, so I miss them. Like there was one at the very beginning of March, and I missed it because I didn't know when it was. But there's not like, and a lot of the builders that I do see, like if you go on DFW Plastic Society on Facebook, a lot of what they're doing is lowrider stuff. And it's just not that there's anything wrong with them. It's just not my flavor, There's some absolutely fantastic builds, just gorgeous, gorgeous paintwork that's incredibly complicated with all the masking and stuff. I have no idea how they managed to mask all those patterns and whatnot. It's just not my thing.
There's a group near me that I particularly. They're a cool bunch of guys, but they're just the way they run their club. I just can't stand.
And everything is spread out in Texas. Like Texas is huge.
See,
my Metroplex, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, is the size of the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
That's just my metropolitan area. Is the size of a state. So everything's like I think there was a big major IPMS show here recently, was in San Antonio. That's 6 hours away from me.
Oh wow. I didn't realize that was that big of a gap.
Yeah, it's I mean, it may not be quite 6 because I think Houston is 6. San Antonio may be 3 or 4, but it's still
Houston is 4.
Houston is 4 when you drive at the speeds we drive, not if you drive at the speed limit. Sorry, there's a peanut gallery comment.
It's okay.
But yeah, we kind of, I'm in Fort Worth, and we kind of judge everything. You don't judge it in miles, you judge it in hours. This city is like this many hours away.
Mm-hmm.
The office that I have not had to go to for a very long time, and I'm hoping they don't make us go back anytime soon, is an hour and a half away. It's like 53 miles. And without traffic, it's an hour and a half away. And afternoon traffic driving home, it's like 2.5 hour drive.
Well, just, put your foot down and be like, I want to work from home still.
I'm trying. Anytime somebody mentions, hey, when are we coming back to the office? I'm like, never. We're never coming back. So.
No, yeah. The only one I hear about all the time is the one in San Antonio. That's the only one. But there's supposed to be a show going to Texas.
I've never been to a show, actually. I want to go to a show, but I've never been to a show. I keep hinting to my wife I want to go to Acme this year.
Yeah, that's on the bucket list for sure.
Acme is like huge, and all the YouTubers go, and I would love to meet the guys. There's so many guys in this hobby that you meet, and even gals. Sorry to any of the gals who may be watching, guys and gals in the hobby that you meet, and you just know them from online and from talking to each other on YouTube in the comment section or on Facebook. And it would be absolutely awesome to meet like Charlie Mack and Chris and Jeff from Just Model Car Garage and Old Tom. And it would be really cool to just sit down with drinks and dinner and just chat.
No, yeah, I totally, yeah. Acme is one of those that's going to be on the. I've got realistically four cons that I want to go to before too long, and two of them are on the West Coast. The others are like all East Coast. One's East Coast, one's Midwest.
There's a lot of stuff on the East Coast. Is my understanding is there's a lot of stuff on the East Coast, like JaxCon's in Florida, Acme's in Atlanta, NNL East is somewhere up there. Chris and Frank, I believe, are going somewhere this weekend or next weekend. I forget where Chris said they were going. Hey Frank, where are y'all going next weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff on the East Coast. There's like every now and then you hear about something here, like the Good Guys Car Show will have like a model show is like off like in a back corner somewhere, and you have to commit to go both days because you have to go the first day to drop your car off, and then you have to go again and pay again to get in the second day to go and get your car back. And I never know when it is. And Mosquito Con is apparently where they're going. Thank you, Frank. So Chris is constantly telling me, I talk to Chris from CD Scale Models at least once a week. My wife gives me crap about it, but like at least once a week, I'm talking to him. You meet people in this hobby, and YouTube has connected so many of us.
Yeah.
And, with the pandemic and whatnot, for a long time, I still don't leave the house much. Me and my wife go out to eat on Friday, and I pick my daughter up from work at Amazon at 4 a.m. And I may go to the grocery store, and that's all I leave my house for. I want to go to Home Depot to buy paint for the house. But I mean, that's the extent. I don't go out. I don't go and socialize. We don't get out much. So, I mean, YouTube has been a major mental health factor just in being able to socialize with people.
No, I agree with that. It's like COVID kind of put us on the map in a lot of ways.
Yeah, when people got locked down with nothing to do, suddenly the hobby exploded.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I remember building a model when I was a kid. That'll eat up a ton of time. There's only so much Netflix you can watch, unless you're my wife, because she loves her TV shows. But I can't sit still that long. My wife's like, yes, you can, because I sit and I watch YouTube for hours and hours, but it's different. Because 1 minute you're watching model cars, the next minute you're watching some dude off in the woods building a cabin with his bare hands, and the next minute you're watching somebody turn a tree stump into a vase, and then the next minute you're watching somebody build knives, and then you're watching somebody paint minis. I've never painted a mini, but I watch like Squidmar and Miniac and a couple of those guys.
Those are two really good ones. I watch
And
them.
you can learn some really cool paint techniques watching the mini guys. The mini guys do some really cool paint stuff. I mean, you guys, you do minis too. Y'all do some really cool paint stuff that, car models just we never run into that sort of thing. We never even think of. One of these days I'm going to learn, I want to play with some minis just to kind of learn the paint techniques and then turn around and try to use that for leather on an interior.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's the whole reason I started.
To kind of see how that would work out.
Yeah, Plasmo is a nut. Yeah,
Plasmo is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I mean, then, I'm watching someone, I used to make jewelry. So every now and then I'm watching somebody do wire wrapping, or I'm watching, somebody fix their toilet. You can learn anything you want to learn on YouTube. So when something breaks in the house, I just go to YouTube and figure out how to fix
it. and there is this caveat. Not all of them know what they're doing.
No, not all of them know what they're doing at all.
Right.
But I mean, so you're watching something different all the time, as opposed to watching, 76 episodes of the same show on one weekend. Just my brain it wants to change and shift. And it's one of those things that having ADD and learning to deal with ADD without being medicated is a challenge sometimes. And my wife wants to strangle me a lot. But you learn things about yourself. Like, I have executive function. There's things that I know I need to do. There's things I know I want to do, and I still won't do them. I'll be like, okay, I really know that I need to edit video so I can get this out by Saturday. I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to go take the trash out now. I'm going to watch another YouTube video.
And then 3 hours passes and you still
3 hours pass and your wife is calling from the room. Are you ever coming to bed? So yeah, and YouTube is a lot of work too.
Well, yes, it
can be. It depends on how you're doing it. Like, if I'm just doing like update videos, like when I do buddy builds, I usually do them as update videos because it's less work YouTube wise and more time having fun modeling. And it's just like, hey, this is what I've got done for the week. This is what I did, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this. Mm-hmm. As opposed to the build videos where it's like, okay, I need to stay on a section. I can't, do the dashboard and do the wheels and, wire the engine. You kind of need to stay somewhat focused in a section. And then, you get 2 or 3 days worth of build time, and the rest of that time is spent taking 10 hours of footage and trying to condense that down to a 15 to 30 minute video, and then do voiceovers, and then actually, add some music that isn't going to get you in trouble with the YouTube police.
Yeah, the YouTube police are kind of brutal at times when it comes to music.
I've got about 30 or 40 songs off of their library. And what I've started doing, because trying to find like 30 minutes worth of music from them, because it's all 2 or 3 minute songs,
Yeah.
So what I do now is for every build series I do, like, so I'm doing the Alpine, I've got kind of a jazzy tune like called Smokey's Lounge, and I will load it up into the beginning. I will cut it down when I start speaking the volume real low. I'll let that play out for a minute or two, and I'll cut it off with a really long, slow fade so that it tapers down into nothingness on the volume. And then when I get to the end of the video, I'll start bringing the volume back up, and I'll run the end of the song out to the end of the video. And then just not deal with music at all in the middle because it's just a pain.
Yeah,
And the longer your video is, the more of a pain it is to find music that's good, fits in kind of the same genre, and isn't like a jarring change between kind of a jazzy and then suddenly hard rock, and then, you know, just trying to find multiple good songs that are similar to fill 30 minutes is just, I mean, it's a lot more work than I thought it was when I started YouTube.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that.
And
Because
YouTube is kind of a hobby on its own.
yeah, like yeah, no, that's very, very true. It is very, very true. Yeah, it's it's absolutely.
I've learned so much more about video editing than I ever thought I was ever going to want or need to know.
Yeah, and see, I use my iMac, right? I have an iMac Mini hooked up to the TV in front of me, and with StreamYard, I can record without going live on this.
Okay.
And that's what I've been kind of trying to do lately, or I'll use my phone, but you know.
Yeah, see, I use my phone, and I've got this clamp thing that clamps onto the side of the desk and just sits up above me like that.
Yeah.
And so I point my phone straight down at my workbench, and then I stream the screen of my phone using an app off of the phone. I can stream the phone screen onto my computer screen. So I've started doing that because I've found, you know, after multiple cases of pulling up an hour and a half of footage where I'm not in frame through the entire hour and a half of footage, I needed some way to be able to see what I was doing, and the phone's like up above my head pointed down, so I can't see that I'm out of frame. So yeah, I mean, just like, and then I'll copy all that across to the computer, and I use DaVinci Resolve for my editing.
That's cool. Yeah, see, I use iMovie for most of mine. Like the intro video to this.
Yeah.
With my son and everything and the pictures.
So I've heard iMovie is fantastic for editing, but I don't use Apple stuff. So, you know, I've got a PC, I've got a Samsung phone. DaVinci Resolve is free.
I haven't used that, but
like
a couple people have told me
it is studio grade, actually used by studios software that is free. There's like a bunch of like high-end features that I will never use and need anyhow, but you have to pay for the pro version to get them. But I mean, you can do all sorts of stuff with it: audio editing, video editing, color. It started out as a color app. So you would take your footage in and you would color correct it in DaVinci, and then you would move it somewhere else to do like Adobe Premiere to do your editing. And over time, DaVinci turned into a full-on editing suite with I forget what they've got, like some really advanced animation stuff in it. There's audio, like really advanced audio, noise reduction, just all kinds of stuff.
No, yeah, it's supposed to be a couple people have told me that's really good program to use.
Fusion. They've got Fusion. They apparently bought Fusion and merged Fusion into it, and you can do like all sorts of really advanced like slideshow stuff. And if you see my my newer videos now have like the section will scroll in on the bottom. Like,
Okay.
so when I was doing the seats in my latest video, it popped in detailing the seats, or it popped in detailing the dash. That's a Fusion title that's just dropped in, and I move it where I want it, and I type in what I want it to say, I tell it what colors I want, and Fusion handles all the sliding and the fade ins and the fade outs. All that's done by Fusion. And
Oh,
it's
that's
all
cool.
done for me. So it's just like really cool, easy to do stuff. And then you can get into really, really, really complicated stuff with Fusion that I was like, what? And I went looking for trying to do slideshows with it, and that got real complicated real fast.
All right, here you go. Johnny's got a question for you.
Not really. I'm not big into armor. I'm just not. It doesn't really, it doesn't motivate me. Tanks, and I mean, they're cool, but it's just not really my thing. I want to try airplanes, but they're so expensive. I would like to do the F-14 from Tamiya and an F-18 in matching Jolly Rogers liveries. But Tamiya's F-14 is almost $100 every time I see it. I think I've seen it every now and then for like 60, and I just didn't grab it when I had the money.
Yeah, you gotta hit Hobby Lobby because they're starting to sell.
My Hobby Lobby doesn't carry it. My Hobby Lobby carries like AMT and Revell for cars, and they carry like Academy and someone else for tanks. Every now and then they'll carry something, but you'll see like one or two Tamiya airplanes, but nothing like really in my wheelhouse.
I get it.
My daughter loves building ships, so every now and then I build ships with her. I don't do Charlie Mack level rigging for 4 years. His constitution. His constitution is absolutely mind-bogglingly amazing detail on that rigging. That man is an amazing builder. There's so many great builders that I've just met on here.
Yeah. Yeah, they carry very few Tamiya kits at Hobby Lobby. Yeah.
Yeah, there's very little there. Like Hobby Lobby tends to angle towards low end, price wise stuff.
Well, and this is my issue with Hobby Lobby. It's like they'll get the name brand stuff and get you hooked on it, right?
Yeah.
And then they go right to the cheap stuff right out, and they'll like discontinue it, get rid of it, and then put the cheap stuff right in its spot.
Yeah.
At least, and Tamiya is the product that I really like.
Yeah, I like Tamiya kits. Tamiya kits are, and people say that they're too easy, but you don't have to fight with them. You get an AMT car kit, and the GT350 Mustang made me almost just want to throw it in the trash. Nothing fit. Literally nothing fit. I had to absolutely fight with every part of that build just to make the front and rear clip don't even seem like they come from the same body. There's more putty than body trying to get those to line up. So if you really want a challenge, you can go and challenge yourself in this hobby to make and you can make some really nice builds with AMT kits. I'm not saying that I'm just saying they require a lot more skill and a lot more work to get a really nice result.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So if you want just a nice, relaxing build, Tamiya is always just a really relaxing, easygoing build.
Yeah. I have the tank with the mine plow, and I pull it out every
I've
so
seen
often.
that.
I do want to build it, and then I'll pick up the lid and look at all those little bitty parts, and then I put the box back, the lid back on. It goes back on the shelf. That's as far as I get with it.
Scale Hanger 182 did his 80,000 subscriber giveaway a few years ago. And I don't know how, but somehow I won something. I didn't realize that I was participating in the giveaway, but I did. And it was, I won my choice of kit from Mini Art. Now, Mini Art's like all armor. And it's all like 132 or 135 scale, which I tend to do like 1/24 scale. So I found this German car, and it's kind of a cool looking car. But I opened the box, and there's like 20 sprues. 20 sprues for a 1/32 or 1/35 scale tiny car. And every piece is like pinhead small. And I'm like, I'm going to do this someday. Not today.
Yeah. That's as far as I understand that one actually. I understand.
There's a lot of stuff I want to do. I want to, like I said, I want to do a couple of jets. I want to do some Gundam. I've never done a Gundam kit before, but they look like fun. They look kind of like the sci-fi, where it's less about the build and it's more about the weathering. Like you could do some amazing paint and weathering stuff with them. Like the Bandai Star Wars stuff just falls together. Like you don't even really need glue if you don't really want to on the Bandai Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, see, this is the BB-8.
That is cool.
You know,
I've done the A-Wing and the X-Wing, the original series X-Wing from Bandai.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're more about the paint than the build, except, of course, that I have to drill out and run fiber optics and LEDs, and so I've got my Dremel tool drilling holes in the frame so that I can run wires through things and put, light the engines and light the cockpits. And so I love doing the Bandai stuff. And I want to do more of that. The Gundams look like they'd be a lot of fun, and you could probably do some of that in them. I've never gotten around to doing any Gundam yet, but there's a lot of stuff I want to do. I want to branch out more from, I love doing cars. I really do love cars, but I kind of want to do some other stuff that's coming in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, and I don't know what size of figures you're looking to doing, but just grab one and try it with just the paints you have. Don't go spend a whole bunch of money.
Everything I have is car paints, though. It's all blacks and silvers, and then body paints that are in car modeling. You learn real quick that you need a bunch of different colors for the body. Mm-hmm. And then your interior is going to be black, which I almost never do black interiors because you can't see anything in them. So I will always try to do them either a gray or a tan. I'm doing red for this one. And then you need a lot of black and silver. Like the entire chassis is going to be black. The suspension may be black. It may be some form of silver. So I have a ton of metallic paints. I've got the Outclad paints. I've got the Mr. Hobby Super Color paints. I've got Tamiya's metallic paints. I have the AK Extreme colors. I don't really like them as much. I didn't realize they were enamels when I bought them, and they take forever to dry. They're faster than normal enamels, but they still, a couple of days later, I can still smush them.
But the AK stuff, there is like a flesh color in there, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, the AK line has a whole bunch of like paints. What I have from AK though is the extreme metal colors.
Oh.
Because I'm building cars, I need aluminum and I need titanium and, steel and iron and, you need and also with car builds, you'll look at the instructions and the instructions say that everything is aluminum in the engine bay. Well, okay, that's nice. But realistically, if my company makes alternators and your company makes, cylinder heads, and, Tom's company makes water pumps, and we're all using aluminum, we're not all using the same grade of aluminum. And it's not all coming from the same foundries. So it's not going to be the exact same color of aluminum. So I like to break parts up, and I'll do a little bit of this silver here and a little bit of like aluminum here, and I'll use steel on this part over here, and I'll use like some titanium over here to break that up so it's not just a blob of flat aluminum paint.
No, yeah, that's there's all kinds of different. The engine bay is not all one color, even though most of us do paint it that way. But
so I'm constantly like breaking the parts up into different colors because I can't. For me, it looks boring when you just have this glob of silver. When you look at an engine that's been painted with like different versions of silvers, there's like just slight differences, so things stand out more. You've got that water pump that sticks out a little bit, or the alternator, and maybe they painted the front of the alternator gold right there where those little fins are, and it just breaks it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, and it's just, and that's the cool thing about your channel too, is you can see the attention to detail in it.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah. At least that's what I enjoy watching on from your channel.
Thanks. Another reason I'm taking why I'm looking at taking a break is I have a new toy. I haven't even unboxed it yet. But this year, with my portion of the tax money, I got a Photon Mono 4K and the wash and cure station. 15, 20 years ago, my hobby of choice was 2D and 3D digital art.
Okay.
And towards the end of my time there, I was doing 3D modeling. So I know, or at least I knew 15 years ago, how to model. What I'm not sure about is how to take that and get it into a 3D print. So I'm fixing to be watching a bunch of YouTube channels about 3D printing. But like supports seem extremely complicated. Like, how do you know where to put supports? How do you know how many supports you need? Why are you doing this? And how do you make the parts thick or thin, or how do you, so that's going to be, getting things scaled to the size that I want them to actually come out. But I think 3D printing is going to be a cool addition.
Oh yeah, 3D printing is all kinds of fun. I've
seen some of your stuff, and your stuff looks fantastic. Like that big giant Warhammer thing with the feet that are bigger than most of the cars that I build. And
yeah, no, that's a baby toddler for sure.
That looks extremely complicated, and it looks like a lot of fun. But I think 3D printing is going to add a lot to this hobby in the next few years.
So what YouTube channels are you watching right now? Let's start there.
Oh Lord, I'm not really watching anything on 3D printing yet.
So we'll get a pen and paper.
Hang on. Please hold while I access your information. Your call is very important. Please stand by. All right. I'm ready.
So there's 3D Printing Nerd.
Right.
Uncle Jesse.
All right.
Maker's Muse. And
Okay.
then when we get off air, I'll give you the other one. Those are the three that I mostly watch. Really, like anytime they put a new video out, I'm watching it.
Very cool. I know Will Pattison does a lot of stuff on 3D printing now. Will is a channel that the man was an engineer before I think he had an accident. And
Yeah.
he's got a 2.5 hour video on primer.
Yeah.
What it is, what it's supposed to be, what it needs to do, what good primer should be able to do. It's like 2.5 hours on primer. He's got like 2 separate videos that are hours long on chrome paint. The man understands paint to a chemical level. Like if you really want to learn paint, get several cups of coffee and go watch Will's channel because it's amazing. But it can kind of go like way deeper into detail. But I was going to watch kind of his channel on some stuff, and then I was going to start searching around. I know you do you do a lot of 3D printing. I don't know if you covered on your channel or not.
I show a lot of the end result, right? I haven't really
Yeah.
On the PLA side, there's a bunch of people that have reached out to me and have asked for help, and I can help you with the PLA side. The resin side, I'm gonna wait for it to warm up, and so it's not 40 in here and it's not 90 in here.
Yeah.
But
the same challenge you have painting. We had that discussion earlier. But so eventually, like when we finish up the house renovations, I'm going to have a corner in the spare room where I'm going to have a desk for my spray booth. And what I'm hoping to do is set up the 3D printer in there so that I can if I know I'm not going to be painting for a few hours while I wait for it to print, I can set the 3D printer right in front of the spray booth and turn the spray booth extractor fan on and vent the resin smell out the window.
Yeah, but remember that paint booth's going to run for 10 hours or 4 hours or.
This is true.
I know with the PLA stuff, and I don't have to worry about the smell with that. But
my understanding is the resin is like really strong.
So they have these. They stand like this. They're little square. It'll probably be about the size of this box.
Okay.
Right. But what they have in them is charcoal, and it's supposed to help with the smell. I have never used them. I don't have one yet, but
I'll have to look into that sometime.
And
it's probably like an air purifier type deal.
Yeah, and that's one of those things on Uncle Jesse's channel that was a tip that I got, and
very cool.
He does a lot of resin stuff, so I've gotten a lot of good tips.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to, you get these, you're trying to drill these distributors that are like the size of the top of a pen, and you've got this, you're trying to drill distributors to put wires in. Half the time, if I've got like an 8-cylinder distributor, I just drill 4 holes big enough to hold 2 wires, and I just glue them in like that around the outside because I can't get that small. So I was like, I know how to model. I can model these that already have the holes in them. So all I have to do is just slide. If I set it up with like a 0.3 millimeter hole in it, I just have to strip some wire end off and just glue the wire in. I can do my own brakes instead of buying brake kits from Hobby Design. Not that that's a bad thing. Hobby Design makes some fantastic aftermarket stuff. but I can make my own. I can do wheels. And not only that, say there's a wheel design I really like, theoretically, if I want a 19 and 20 offset with like a larger rear wheel, I can rescale 2 wheels and print them out the size that I want them to be, instead of, maybe I go to Fugu Garage and Fugu Garage only has them in 18s. Or, any of the other, there's tons of people out there with great aftermarket stuff. But if you're only seeing TE37s in 18-inch and you need them in a 19 or you need them in a 20, if you have the file for it, you can scale it and, print out what you need.
Yeah. And then there's Dominic and Miguel that have both been on the interview, right? Dominic uses Fusion 360, and then he went into some of the stuff that, Miguel was doing, and they're printing out all kinds of car parts.
See, some of those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
I used to use Rhino 3D a long time ago. So I know I understand the concepts of it, but I'm going to have to learn a new software package for modeling, because I don't even know if the copy I have still works or not. And there's just totally new stuff out there. So I'm going to have to be learning like Fusion 360 or Blender or something. So I'm kind of going to be starting over on that. But I kind of want to do, I like to scratch build. I did the Tamiya Nissan 2000 Skyline GT, the old one, and I built an oil catch can for it. But if I could model that in 3D and just print it, it would be a ton easier than, me actually going through 3 different sizes of aluminum tubing and then, some aluminum rod and kind of making it the way I made it. I could probably make a much nicer result if I could just 3D model it and print it.
Oh yeah. See, Miguel and Dominic, if are also like, they're in the hobby too, so they've kind of, Miguel has really figured all that stuff out, and Dominic's really good with some of that. I mean, he spent a whole bunch of time with Fusion 360 and got it to work really, really good, to where he could print out clear taillights lenses.
Nice.
So there's people in the hobby, in our Pacific hobby, that are getting all that stuff to work too.
So very cool.
So Mopar, the only reason I say is the spray booths, at least some of the ones that I've, maybe not the one that he talked about, but some of the lower end ones, those paint booths aren't the air or the blower in those. They're not meant to run for hours.
Yeah.
They're meant to run for like 30 minutes and then you turn it off. And
yeah, those little $80 hobby air booths, I would not use one for lacquers. I don't feel they move enough air. So trying to use one of those $80 little bitty fold-up ones for something like resin would be a lot.
Yeah.
And they're, like you said, they're just not made for that. They're not made to be running that length of time. Now, the paste booth that I have, it's more of an industrial blower motor.
Yeah. See, so yours would work great for that.
I've accidentally left mine running overnight. Actually, I've accidentally left mine running for 2 days and came back and it was perfectly fine. It was still going like a champ, and was like, oops. I was going to come back and paint later. At least I remembered to clean out the airbrush.
Yeah, that's usually cleaning out the airbrush when the wife calls for you and forgetting. Yeah, that's a mistake. I've done that one a couple times. There was another question up here. Where did it go? Oh yeah. Yes, there are ways to scan stuff. I'm not the guy to ask for that. I don't like.
I've seen
I've
like
heard you
3D
take like
scanners, and my understanding from the scanners that they're still not. You still have to go back in and fix anomalies and fix
yeah.
like, things that don't quite scan right, and you've got to reshape them to fix them up. But my understanding is they're a good starting point for some things, and for some things, if it's like just too small, maybe not. But my understanding is they were really expensive.
Yeah. The place that I know them from that are got the really high end ones are the ones that Adam Savage used to do the 3D print of his body. Yeah, and then 3D Printing Nerd he just did a video on printing his actual full scale self.
Nice.
Like I said, I don't know how all that
My
stuff
3D
works.
printer would not be able to do that.
Well,
it's small, I think. I think it's I don't know. Like I said, I don't even have it out of the box yet.
I don't disagree, Mopar. Build your own booth. But you're still dealing with the fan. So you have to buy the expensive industrial fans for that. And that's why those are expensive.
My booth
that part of it is not cheap.
My booth was really expensive. It was one of those, I happened to have the money at the time, and I jumped on the chance to get it. And most of that money is in the blower. It really is in the extractor.
Yeah.
Like the body is all sheet metal and is probably $20 worth of material. The money is in that extractor.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. So we've hit about an hour and a half. Did you have any questions for me?
I had them, and I don't know what I did. I had some. So what do you like to build? I know you do minis. You do a lot of minis. What else do you like to do a lot of?
So I'm kind of all over the place. Like I do cars, trucks, planes, helicopters.
I've seen some of you and I were doing the 41 Chevy at about the same time.
Oh, the truck? Yeah, that truck is really, really nice.
The 41 Chevy, I was doing a buddy build with Chris from CD Scale Models right around the same time you were doing it. And I'm like, I'm doing that. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place because I do Gundams, I do Warhammer, I 3D print stuff to paint.
Yeah, and I want to spread out and do some more stuff that's a little more varied.
Like I've done the Deep Space Nine space station. I've got a bunch of Star Trek. Cool. There's Star Wars stuff in a pile over there. I'm all like, my goal is to the end of April. If everything goes right, the Warlord Titan is going to be done.
Cool.
So I can get that finally off my, list of stuff to complete.
And that's cool that you're printing out the Warlord Titan. Because trying to find one of those, my understanding is they're like thousands of dollars and they're ridiculously rare, and you've got to find someone who actually has one and is willing to sell it.
So just on that figure alone, the body is like $2,000.
Jesus.
That doesn't include the armor, the armor plates and stuff. That doesn't include the armor. The guns. That's just basically the metal body, the upper part and the legs. And then for like another $1,500, you get the armor plates, the guns, and yeah, it's so you're into it about $3,500.
You're about $3,500 just for the plastic, and you still have to pay for paint and glue.
But here's the thing: it's not plastic when you buy the one from the manufacturer. It's full solid resin casting.
Okay.
So that means not alone you have to put it together. Now you have to buy tools because some of those parts aren't. you're gonna have to
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got to do a lot of sanding and correcting and fixing.
Heat gun. Yeah. It's
And resin eats a sander quick.
yeah.
Just from my experience from using some of the resin aftermarket stuff, resin can eat a sander really quick.
Yeah, Forge World, yeah, it's cast resin, yeah. But like I found the file on Thingiverse, so I snagged it when I saw it. I got a Warhound too, and I'm gonna print that out at some point. But no, I couldn't pass that up, and then once I started printing it out, yeah, it's crazy.
So you asked me what the hobby was like down here in Texas. What's it like over there in the Northwest? I mean, the Pacific Northwest. Because I think you're about the only guy I know from like the West Coast.
Yeah, there's me, Todd H, Ron Engel Jr., and then there's another guy. There's a couple people up in Portland, but the hobby is treated so differently out here on the West Coast. Like you're really it's really before COVID. It was, why are you wasting your time with that?
Yeah,
that's kind of the impression, After COVID, it's kind of changed a little bit. You're seeing a lot more people doing more hobby stuff.
Well, a lot of people have more time on their hands, when they're being.
Oh, White Gloves in California, yeah. He's in California. I don't consider him Pacific Northwest. Pacific Northwest is Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. Maybe some of Montana.
I have to add him to my list of cool channels to go check out. White Glove.
Yeah, Callan does a live video every Monday, I think.
Nice.
And he's one of the episodes too. He's a really cool guy.
Cool. Another question I had was what got you into the hobby?
Well, yeah. So there's a short answer to this and a long answer. So I was probably 13 when the 33 Willies. I don't think it was. It's classified as Pro Street now, but I don't think it was then.
Yeah.
But I got that kit to start out with. And then it kind of went through high school, and then probably I turned 19, 20, and then kind of stopped a little bit. And then with everything that my son and wife went through, and then I lost my job a year later, I had to find something to keep me kind of occupied so I didn't go completely bonkers. Yeah, so that's what got me back into the hobby about 8 years ago or so.
The hobby is definitely a mental health boom. And there's a ton of guys, not only me, there's a ton of guys that I know that have some mental health issues that, and it's just getting that outlet and that ability to, having something to do and that downtime to de-stress is sometimes just like a huge thing.
No, yeah. I use this hobby mostly, is big stress relief for sure. Because I can come out here, I can kind of perfect example is in the summertime, I don't get a lot of time out here because I have a 9-year-old. And there'll be times where my wife says,
remember those days.
Yeah, you need to go out in the garage. You're done today. Right? And and then I go disappear for like 30 minutes and go work on something.
Yeah.
So
until it's time to go cook dinner.
Yeah, there's always that. But no, that's basically what got me in and then what brought me back, right?
Yeah, a lot of the Pro Street kits start out not as Pro Street kits. but
Yeah.
guys Pro Street them, and after a while, the kit manufacturers figured out that Pro Street was a thing, and then they started retooling a bunch of those to
Well,
turn
see,
them into Pro Street kits.
on that kit, it was, it was at that level. It had bigger wheels in the back than the front, so it wasn't classified as a Pro Street, but it definitely was Pro Street.
But the only thing that was really lacking was tubbing the inside of the, to make the big wheels fit. But yeah, I think I remember the really, really old Willys kit, and yeah, it was pretty close.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, definitely. I don't know. I think I've got most of the Batmobile stuff.
Have you seen the new from the Batman? Have you seen the Batmobile?
I've seen the movie. I haven't seen the model kit for it yet.
There's not. I think somebody may be doing one, but they're only doing it at like 1/35th scale, which drives me nuts. I'm like, no, make that in 1/24th. That I haven't even seen the movie, but I've seen that Batmobile, and I'm like, I want to build that.
See, never mind.
It just looks really cool to me, and it looks very non-traditional Batman.
No, actually, I've seen the movie, so this is. I won't spoil it for you, but how do I say this? It's like a Chevy Nova that's all like that they made into like a Baja racer with a jet engine out the back. That's basically the best explanation I can.
Concept.
That's
kind of a really cool concept, but just I'm talking the aesthetic from it. The aesthetic from it isn't what you expect when you think Batmobile,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least me, I remember the old Batman, like the original Kapow! TV series, and then there was the one where it's like super long and it's like sleek and it kind of has the fins on it, and that's kind of the aesthetic that you think of when you think Batman, or like those two kind of cars.
Mm-hmm.
Or you think the Rambler, which the Rambler is more of a military-esque, but the pictures that I saw for the newer Batmobile was more almost like
it's a muscle car. I will say that
it was like a sci-fi Mad Max.
Yeah, like it was
like if you took Mad Max and blended some sci-fi into it, was kind of the feel that I had off of that car.
No, I think I'm more accurate in saying it's meant for Baja.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Because that's the description I want to give you for it. It's and that's probably more accurate.
Cool.
I totally love the one for the 66 show, because Barris is the one that made that, and he has all kinds of movie cars out there that are just phenomenal.
Cool.
But you got any other questions for me?
Yeah, what paints do I not know about? Since you build in such a wide variety of stuff, I tend to do like lacquers and stuff, so I know some of the lacquer brands, like Scale Finishes and MCW, but like what are some paints that I wouldn't know of because I don't build outside of the car hobby?
So this is my opinion for you, right? I would get more of the Tamiya line. If you like the Tamiya paints,
I've got a ton of the Tamiya stuff. Like I've got an entire shelf that is I've got an entire drawer that is 2 layers deep of these bottles of Tamiya paints. So I have a ton of the Tamiya lacquer lines.
But they have like the skin tone. They have like
I've got buff and I've got flesh, and
like I said, you can do a lot with that Tamiya paint, and if you already have a bunch of it, you're kind of keeping it in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say is you need to go,
like if I were to start picking up minis for instance.
Okay.
What paints would you use for stuff like that?
So what I started out with was the craft acrylic stuff from Walmart.
Okay.
And then I moved to more in Hobby Lobby. There's the aisle that has all the paint brushes and stuff. And then it has like the inks and all the higher end paints for all that stuff.
Yeah.
I moved to that. And then I went to Army Painter. That's the brand of paint that I have.
Okay.
That I have a lot of right now.
Army Painter.
And why? Because it's a lot like the craft acrylic stuff, but it's a little bit better quality.
Okay.
It
like
made that
Citadel and all these
easy.
other lines on some of these YouTube channels, and I'm like, so if I were to go into this hobby, so yeah, that's because like I said, I want to kind of do the minis some, because you can like get minis on 3D print them, you can print them out and just paint them and whatnot. But there's so many cool techniques that people do that I think could like transform over into other branches of the hobby.
Yeah, and
for instance, like we don't, when we do an interior in a car build, we typically will just spray it tan, maybe throw a wash in it and go. But when you look at leather on a mini, there's like all these highlights and shadows and depth that we typically don't do as car modelers, you know?
So, but you got to remember that when you see those on figures, that's not just one color.
That I know. That's like that's what I'm talking about. There's techniques to mini painting that we don't know and we don't apply as like car builders.
Yeah.
And you'll look at like leather boots on a mini and be like, that's so cool. Now, how do I get that to apply to a car seat, you know? Or how do I get that to apply to a dash? Or, you know, the door cards, we've got door cards that have all that molded in detail. How do I take those techniques and apply those into some of the interior work or whatnot on like a car model, or, you know, a tank? Maybe like the tanks have seats and stuff in them. So I really think that there's things that we can learn from the various different branches that I think we could bring in. And that's kind of where I want to go. I want to learn more techniques and then try to apply those techniques back into and kind of grow from where I'm at now to like a different level.
Yeah, and that's why I said if you have the Tamiya line and you like it, because there's they have a lot of different colors.
Yeah.
For that, and you can airbrush almost all of that.
Yeah.
But like Muse is saying, the Army painters are not as well pigmented. That's very true. Very true. But it's so similar to the stuff I was using before. The transition was easy. That's why I went with that. But I have a bunch of GW stuff. But I don't buy any more of it, because unless you buy it in a starter pack, it's not worth spending the money.
Yeah.
You know? And mini paint is not ridiculously overpriced, but it is overpriced. And you just gotta stay within your budget. And
a lot of things, as soon as you get a hobby attached to them, the price goes up. Like Tamiya tape. Love me some Tamiya tape. Love this stuff. Washi tape is like $10 for a roll this long.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're in 30 different colors, like pink and pastel blue and whatnot, but it's still washi masking tape. And that's really all this is. All Tamiya tape is washi tape with Tamiya's name on it, and charging $5 a roll.
Yeah, and there's like Muse has put all kind of like scale 75. I haven't used it, but I know it's out there.
Yeah, I've got to go back and read through these comments after we're done because he's been
And
throwing
the
like a bunch of stuff in there.
GW, I have a bunch of GW stuff, but I only buy it if I can buy it in a starter pack, because I mean, you get in the starter pack, you would, if you bought each one of those singly, you'd spend double the starter pack.
Yeah.
It's like, the one that I'm trying to look to see where some of the other ones she says. Alclad is good for like,
love Alclad for metals. Like there's no better
uh,
paint out there in my opinion for metal colors.
Pro Acryl. That's the one I would. I'm going to be getting some of the skin tone set out of that. There's a bunch of skin tone colors that they have that I want to try. Vallejo, you can get at Hobby Lobby, I believe, still. But they have a bunch of good colors. And I think that was, yeah.
The only real hobby stores I have are Hobby Lobby and then Hobbytown USA. And Hobbytown's model section is all marked up like ridiculously.
Yeah, see, and
like the exact same kits you can get for $18 in Hobby Lobby on their 40% off day, Hobbytown USA will have marked at $50.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, exactly.
You know, there's times when I've looked at the prices at Hobbytown and then I've gone to eBay and found better prices on eBay of all places.
Yeah. Glazing medium is a liquid you mix with the paint. There's all kinds of different ones, and you got to kind of play around with it. But like, first, I'm going to be trying to switch to Flow Aid out of the Liquitex stuff to thin some of the thin some of the paint that I've used. There's pearlizing mediums you can add to stuff to change the color. Yeah, the possibilities are endless when it comes to all of it. So, but yeah, for the most part, right now, I'm mostly using Army Painter. I seem to like it a little bit more, but I've got so much of it now that I'm not buying any more paint for a while. I mean, I printed out the Cyborg figure from the Justice League movie. So I don't have a good chrome, so I went and got this Green Stuff World.
I've heard of them. I've heard their chrome is good. I've just never tried it yet.
I haven't either, but this is going to be one of the next things I try.
I'm always looking for a good chrome.
If it works,
nothing competes with Alclad in my opinion for look. But Alclad is so fragile that when you try to handle it to put like a bumper on a body, now you've got a black thumbprint where you've rubbed off the chrome. But you know, then there's other chromes that are more durable, but they don't look like chrome, they just look like a bright silver. Or if you put like clear over them like aqua gloss or something, then suddenly. So I'm always looking for a good chrome. And like Molotow was the thing for a while. I never really got into Molotow. Molotow never dries for me. Like, never. I've had stuff that I've had painted. I picked it up 2 weeks later, and as soon as my skin touched the Molotow chrome, it was a dull gray.
See, because like I do use oil paints here and there, right, for like weathering and stuff. And I always put it like I have this clear.
Something else I kind of want to learn, because you know you'll watch some of the guys who are doing tanks, and even though I'm not really into them, you'll watch them and they'll put down paint and they'll take it off and they'll put it back down and they'll take it off and they'll put it back down. And the 40th time they've done it, I'm sitting here screaming at the YouTube video, going, "Why don't you just leave it?" And I understand that there's a concept to it that they're building up. But it's like there's techniques to that. Like you could take that and you could turn that into oiling up instead of just, you know, we kind of lazy will take black and brown Tamiya enamel wash and just wash the engine. But you could get some really, really fine detail if you knew how to do the oil washes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And oils, if you don't thin them out thin enough, they take forever to dry. So what I do is I take, those clear like totes that have like the white base or black or whatever color the lid. I will take that and set it on top, like alcohol.
That's what I do for 2K Clear.
Yeah. See,
because 2K Clear, after you spray it, it's like a magnet for dust for a day, for probably a good half a day. Like if there's dust anywhere in your house, it will be drawn to that model.
Yeah. But see, I take one of the fans we got for when my wife was in the hospital. They're battery operated.
Okay.
But you can take the whole inside of it apart, clean it, put it back together, and then I'll set it inside there and run on low.
Oh,
just to kind of get the wind circulating to let it dry.
Yeah, so you're like, it's almost like a cold kiln to try and dry the paint.
I mean, on a warm day, when it's warm in here, I do that. Yeah, I can get enamel paint out of a can to dry in almost 10 minutes doing that.
Nice.
So, like I said, it's pretty. I've figured out a couple things, but like inks through an airbrush. Like I'm gonna be doing Optimus Prime here.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna start with a silver ink, right?
Okay.
Do an airbrush, and then I'm gonna put the like red over it.
Cool.
And it'll make it pop. And I do, and that was just over like a light gray.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with base coats that a lot of people don't understand, and it's something that many painters do, and they build color up over bases that a lot of us in the car hobby don't really understand because we're used to just spraying color. That is cool.
That's the same color with a black primer. Is the last figure I showed.
Nice.
So
yeah,
like I said,
primer has a huge effect.
Yeah.
Like on the Alpine that I'm doing, it's molded in a bright blue plastic. And that blue will come up. Like bright plastics, for some reason, have a tendency to come up. And if you're using a darker paint color, it's not that big of a deal. But I decided to do my A110 in white. So I was going to have blue splotches inside this white paint. So I had to hit it with a black primer to cancel out that blue, and then follow that up with a silver base because white won't cover over black. And then do my white over the silver, and then do my pearl white over the white base. And it was just, I mean, it's one of those things that if you're not thinking about it and you don't understand, you're going to get a very different result than what you're expecting if you don't understand how base colors affect top colors.
Yeah. So the Daler Rowney inks airbrush, they're nice. But the Liquitex ones, I thought I had a bottle near me. The Liquitex ones you can get at Michael's now are so much better. So much better. I've almost switched all of my inks to Liquitex now because of it. My Sotar shoots those things like no problem.
And that's the thing. The Sotar is like a 0.2 millimeter, right?
No, 0.3. Is
it 0.3? I thought the Sotar was supposed to be like a super fine detail brush.
It is for Badger, but I have the one that has 0.3 in it, but I believe they have a set where you can get 3 different needles for it, and one's a 2.
Yeah.
I think it's a 5, a 3, and a 2.
See, there's a 0.2 millimeter setup for my Apex. The smallest needle setup for the Patriot is a 3. And that's kind of big for some of the detail work. So what strange, obscure tools do you use? Like not standard stuff, but what weird things that most people wouldn't think of do you use as tools? Like I've got my blue tack and my mechanical pencils.
Hair dryer to dry paint sometimes. I use a lot of sculpting tools.
Oh, that's cool.
And this is I don't actually know what the word for this one is, but like
So what do you use those for?
So when I want oil paint in a certain spot and I just want to do a little bit of it, that's what I use these for sometimes.
Cool.
The oil, yeah, I for like taking like on a car and you want like a dark line like running down it for like when you're trying to weather something.
Yeah.
I'll just use the point of it, and just take the oil and just slightly. But
nice.
I tend to use a little too much, but I think it's because I use this too. But I use these a lot for holding parts together. I have pin vices.
Yeah, I have a pin vise that I took one of my wife's old cross stitch needles. After when her needle broke, I grabbed the needle and I cut the end off of it, of the eye, so that it makes this tiny little Y shape, which it won't focus on because it wants to focus on me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I use to apply super glue. If I want a really, really fine bead of super glue, I will either use this, or I will once again use my 0.3 millimeter mechanical pencil and just dip the lead in some super glue and put tiny little drops. Like I want a tiny, tiny bit of super glue on like a tiny photo etch ring to go around a gauge bezel.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use the mechanical pencil and put just a tiny bit of super glue on it and then place that bezel.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, I scavenged my wife's old broken sewing needle.
Oh. There's going to be a video on this thing. I picked this up probably about a month ago from Walmart, but it's a buffing pad.
Cool.
Yeah, so I can turn it up and then just...
You could go to town with that.
Yeah.
You could also wreak some havoc with it too, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's just meant for the body, right?
Yeah, I'll use my Dremel for polishing bodies, and even on the lowest speed on the Dremel, you have to make sure you are constantly moving or you're going to burn through the paint in seconds.
You know what? This thing worked good I tried it on a spoon first, and it worked really, really good. But I had to turn it like all the settings like on low and 1.
Yeah.
And then it's yeah, it
the lowest my Dremel goes is 5,000, and I've gone through paint like that and suddenly I've got a repair I've got to do. So you have to constantly be moving and not staying in any one spot for any period of time.
What's a SPTA mini polisher, Brian? What the heck is that?
Brian always has some cool stuff to go look up.
Yeah, yeah, he's gonna be a cool person. But yeah, I mean, this was to get the refills for the Dremel was like $6, I think.
Okay.
And this was $4. So I just picked this up. I was like, this will last a while. At least I hope so.
$13 on Amazon.
Yeah, like I said, but
And then they attach onto this little thing with some Velcro.
yeah.
Like the head has a Velcro on it. And they just like you pull one off, you stick one on.
Oh yeah,
That was like one of those things because Dremel's polishing pads, they're proud. They're very proud of them.
Yes, they are. I don't know. Some of the other tools that I have a magnifying glass. This thing.
So I'm gonna need something like that soon.
And to be honest, you really, I mean,
My
don't get me wrong.
doctors are already talking about bifocals for the eye doctor.
You know, like, I mean, it blows things up, and then
Nice.
it does have a light to it, so I can completely, you know.
I got these, which I originally got for my wife because my wife does like really, really fine cross stitching. She does these cross stitch patterns that are like a Nene Thomas painting, like a fantasy artist painting, but they're like these big, huge cross stitches with these itty bitty, teeny tiny dots. Like she'll work on one painting for years, doing just little cross stitches. And she didn't like them, so I got them, and they won't stay tightened on my head. They're always falling. They're never where I want them to be. So I definitely need to look at something better for magnifying. Because I'm getting to that point where I just can't see, even with my tiny pencil, I can't quite see what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so this lamp's super nice, but the price tag that comes with this lamp is like $400 that my parents bought for me.
So I'll be looking for something else.
Like I said, I did not buy that, but I know how much my parents paid for it, and I was like, yeah.
Every now and then you get something like that, and you're like, holy cow.
No, I was like, my parents had already paid for it, so it was like I didn't have a choice. I had to take it, but yeah, I told them never to spend that much on me again. You know, like, no, please don't do that.
honestly, Brian, when I go to the eye doctors, they tell me to take my glasses off and ask me what I can see on the chart, and I say, what chart? So I feel you, man. I really feel you.
Yeah. The only other like off the wall like thing that I use is a coffee cup warmer.
I do that too. I've got one for doing decals because decals work better in warm water. And if you're doing a lot of decals, or you're doing decals over a long period of time, that coffee cup warmer will keep your decal water warm. And I hate decals anyhow, so anything that helps me with decals is a plus.
See, I always have to like, I always take like, I have a big bowl that I warm up with just sink water, right?
Okay.
Or I'll microwave it and get it super freaking hot. But then I'll put that water in a tumbler because it's got the metal on the inside, right?
Okay.
And that'll keep the water warm forever. And then I'll just put a little bit on a paper towel, and then I'll put the decals on the paper towel. That's how I've been doing decals, and I've not been fucking them up lately.
Nice.
So, you know,
me and decals are one of those things where it's like, okay, I have to use the gauge bezels. What can I get away with not using off this decal sheet? What can I mask off and paint?
Yeah. See now, but what I use the coffee cup warmer for is like I'll get like a cup of hot water, and then I'll set the paint in it to make it to where it's warm. So when it does go through the airbrush, it's as thin as I can possibly get it and stay that way.
Now, for me, the bifocals thing isn't necessarily that I don't want to be old. I have a defect. I was born with it where my eyelids didn't fully develop, so I always look like I'm stoned. I was supposed to have had a surgery when I was 16 to correct it, and it didn't get done. So because of that, I hold my head up, and it's subconscious because I've always from 4 I was having to look down to see because my eyelids are in the way. So the eye doctors are trying to fight putting me in bifocals because where I hold my head, I'm always going to be looking through the bifocal. I'm always going to be looking through the near vision lens instead of looking through the far vision lens, which is what I would need to be for driving and whatnot. So they're like, we don't quite want to put you in bifocals because the way you naturally hold your head is going to cause you problems.
Yeah. Glasses suck. I wish I didn't need them, but I understand.
I loved having contacts when I had contacts, but I hate putting them on in the morning.
No, I can't do
It's
contacts.
so much easier to blindly reach over and feel for your glasses and just slap them on your face.
Yeah.
Than to try and put the contacts in. That's another thing. I wanted contacts for a while. My wife was like, I'm not buying you contacts until you can prove that you can touch your eye. Until you can prove that you can touch your eye 10 times in a row, we're not doing, because I'm the type of person who, to put eye drops in my eye at the time, I used to lay my head at the side, put the eye drop on the corner of my eye and let it run in.
So she has a good point here. There's Twitch, and some of them are on YouTube too. But Twitch, you go on there and watch a bunch of figure painters.
Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of people on there that do awesome jobs. And there's a guy that I watch on Twitch. He's pretty much the only one I watch now, because some of the others have kind of fallen off that I was watching. But James Wappel, who's been a guest on here, I could sit and watch him paint with oils forever.
So and I kind of need to check out Twitch. I've heard so much about Twitch that I don't want to get on Twitch.
Well, there's not for us, right? Modeling side of it, not the mini painter side of it, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple guys on there doing model cars, but there's not a lot really. Of it. It's more figures, video gaming.
I've been on a little bit, and I've seen some cosplay stuff, which, I have no interest in cosplay, but I will sit and watch somebody build cosplay costumes for hours.
Yeah, it's
so
fun.
I've seen some cosplay stuff. I haven't really seen anybody do mini painting, but then their algorithms determined that I was a guy, and so I started getting flooded with just chatting, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not just chatting. I'm not looking for that section. I know there's a lot of video gaming, and some of the video gaming, I mean, it's kind of cool, but I mean, if I'm not gonna watch a video gamer. If I'm gonna be doing games, I want to play. I like playing video games. So
yeah. Now see,
why watch someone play when you can just go play?
Yeah, Dark Elf Girl is actually up in Portland near me, but she's on Twitch. She's hella talented. But it looks like Brian's going to be streaming here. Actually, you know what? He's probably going to be starting here in about an hour, knowing him.
He usually starts at about 5 my time, so usually a couple hours from now. But
yeah,
yeah. I've hopped onto his stream a couple of times every now and then. But Brian is an awesome dude. I'm looking forward to his interview. So yeah. I have kept you for 2 hours now.
No, about 2 hours. Okay. I figured we were close. But yeah. But yeah, 2 hours. Yeah, it's gone a little.
You're probably
longer
with me.
Yeah. But if you don't have any other questions for me, I'm gonna end this.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for having me. It was really cool.
And thank you for making this work and coming on, dude. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. And I will talk to
This
you
is
in a
fun.
couple minutes.
All
Okay.
right. Thanks.
Bye. All right, everybody. So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be not on next weekend. I'm taking my birthday off. My birthday's actually the Monday after, but yeah. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed the interview. I won't see you next week, but we're going to be on next week with a very interesting topic that we're going to learn a lot the next interview that I do. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.